Well, when you think about it, I wanted to look at it from a macro view, and correct me if I'm wrong. So Bob Iger, he retired after 15 years as a Hollywood legend in 2020. Correct. Then he comes back, and since he's been back, he thought his mere presence was going to correct everything. But the stock's down 8%. It's down 3% just in the last year. It's almost at its lowest in a decade. You have about, what is it? 34% of their stock is owned by institutions, about 29% by mutual funds. And then what is it? 8.6, 8.7 by, John and Jane Q. Citizen, everyday people, which of course, I don't know how patient they're going to be. I'm surprised they haven't filed a class action lawsuit. Mm-hmm. But it's what I said the first time you brought me on. After listening to everything, I could be wrong, but I believe, I don't care if they had the parks, if they started doing everything correctly. The parks were firing on all cylinders. They sold the assets. They needed to bring in the cash. The studio is the mouth. That's what people interact with on a daily basis or here, whether it's on social media or with their friends or through movies or through Disney Plus. As long as that continues to poison the entire organization, I don't think they can correct anything. I mean, we're going to have Marvel's going to come out, right? That's one black guy. 2 weeks after that, you're going to have Wish. That's the second one. By the time Christmas turns around, you're going to have Mickey turn into Minnie like he was given a bris by a blind rabbi.
Ouch.
I mean, I think that's where they're going. They didn't address the real issue, is they have a cancer inside their organization. And you have to cut that out until you do so.
George, I took notes. I want to read you what I wrote because it's exactly what you said. I said, so if everything goes right with ESPN and everything goes right in the parks and you put the money in and they still bring in these impossibly over budget epic movies that not only bomb, but are financially incapable of ever making a profit, even if they did well, then what? What profiteth a man to gaineth his money only to piss it away on a movie that can't make money?
You're correct, and pleasure to meet you. I've listened to you
Also,
before. Yeah, I hear a lot of analysts, and they always say, because they look at the structure of the organization. And I remember it was Valliant who opened my eyes. You remember that map that you had where it showed like Disney Studio? It was like a pimple and everything else. You had ESPN, parks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Except for the fact that the mouth, Disney, the pimple, the studio is actually the mouth for everyone. I mean, when you talk to your next door neighbor, a cousin, a niece, anyone, they connect the films with Disney, the parks with Disney. But who do they engage with? Unless you're going to go to one of the resorts, unless you're going to be there, it's the movies, it's the television shows. They have to correct that because the market is as much about psychology as it is about fundamentals. And as long as they see that they have content that's one film or show after the other, it's being produced for like these dust collecting degree holders. It's these people who are emoji engineers and nothing more. They talk and ramble a lot on Twitter and TikTok, but they don't watch or support the movies. So I think they have to correct that. I think that's their biggest problem. And until they do that, I just think they're going to have one issue after the other.
And we heard nothing today that says they know how.
Well, what's funny is I listened to an old interview. Has anyone seen the interview with George Lucas when he was on Charlie Rose? When he's like he was explaining how in the 60s they started getting a lot of film grads. The studios, when they were originally founded, he's like they were founded by these entrepreneurs, but who are also creatives. And then you started having the corporations come in, and then they started bringing in the film students like him, the Spielbergs. But then the studios came back in. He goes, when you are selling a movie, he goes, what are you selling? He goes, you're selling creativity. And he goes, you have corporations. And he goes, they have no imagination. They have no talent, no creativity. They don't know how to make a film. And that's what we get down to.
George, the great line about that, a guy named Lionel Chetwynd, wonderful writer, wrote it for the Directors Guild president at the time, Gil Cates, to mention it a thing. And he said, this is the era when Coca-Cola and Mitsubishi and everybody was buying studios in Gulf and Devour. And he said, what these big industrial companies don't understand is that at a motion picture studio, the capital equipment goes home every night.
Oh, I like that.
Doesn't that just sum it all up?
It does. And they have lost that. They've lost that. That's, and you think they would understand that. because Walt built that company there. He was a creative. He brought the money in, but he had the vision, he had the dream. I remember reading about him where he took the money from the original Snow White and he sunk it back into creating a school for them to improve their art. I mean, how many companies do that today? It's like, okay, we're going to create a school just for you so you can better your art, so you can become a better talent force to help us make better films.
Walt was from another planet. I mean, he
Right.
really, really was. The story goes that when they were laying out the hub at Disneyland, they came to him and they said, "Where do you want to put the paths through the grass?" And he said, "Don't." And they said, "What?" And he said, "Plant the cheapest grass seed you can find. And after we've been open about 4 or 5 weeks, look at where it's dead because people are walking on it. That's where the path goes." Who
Smart.
thought like that in
Yeah.
1955, for God's
Yeah,
sakes?
that's vision. And so I think that's what they're missing. I think Bob Iger would have done better if he had never returned. At least his reputation, I think, would have stayed intact because Disney was collapsing anyway. Unless he has the ability or the desire to get rid of everybody in there who has this single-minded myopic focus to make everything woke, to program a new generation of Siri summoners instead of imagined minds. I mean,
well, his ego's not going to allow that, unfortunately, and that's Bob Iger's biggest problem. And his ego's the reason he came back. He was unhappy with the fact that Bob Chapek didn't want to continue what Bob Iger was doing when Chapek took over. He got mad that Chapek didn't want to listen to him, didn't want to include him in all the meetings still, didn't want to do this, didn't want to do that. So he worked for the next year or so to have Bob Chapek thrown out. It was a coup. And that's what he did. Now Bob Iger's back saying, we're going to keep doing things my way. And now he's figuring out, I think I broke it all. And now I'm stuck with it.
Yeah.
Speaking of things like this, we're 35 to 49 million domestic opening this weekend is what they're projecting for the Marvels.
But how can you blame it? Part of it, the plot is from Spaceballs, part of it. I mean, it's like, are they going to give Mel Brooks a royalty check?
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's from Spaceballs. It's we talked about this last time. I had so many friends, which I now call them retarded friends, because of the fact they're like, the Avengers are coming back. I'm like, you really are retarded. How do I know you? Because they saw that teaser, the one that told them, oh,
right. That was the trick. That was the last desperate attempt. Let's show you this and make you think that all these people are coming back, because we got nothing left at this point. This movie is going to die.
Right. But you know how angry they're going to be if it's 10%, 20%, or 30%, whoever falls for it, when they go watch it and realize that they were tricked, that's not going to engender positive feelings. They're going to be like, wait a minute. I came back for the guys.
Yeah. It's not. Let's read from this real quick, because I think this is interesting. Okay, the pros on this is from Box Office Pro. As far as the franchise consistency goes, Marvel remains unsurpassed in terms of widespread brand awareness, and that to an extent is true. Now, if you remove Spider-Man from that brand awareness in 2023 falls off a cliff. Let's be honest. Established by the studio in the last 15 years. And this new movie, of course, is going to challenge the first one from 15 years ago for worst box office to date. The original Captain Marvel was a runaway blockbuster smash during its 2019 run, earning $426.8 million domestically, $1.13 billion worldwide, which, again, I remind folks, is fugazi because of where it was positioned in the lineup 2 months before Endgame. And they should have paid attention, like I said back then, to merchandise sales instead of ticket sales, because the merchandise sales didn't happen for this character. They're still rotting on the shelves next to Rose Tico dolls.
See if you can find a Captain Marvel action figure right now as this movie's releasing. See if you can find one at a big box retailer.
Right? Yeah, because the toy companies were like, "Yeah, we're good. We're still sitting on a bajillion of these things from 4 or 5 years ago." The slow autumn market could create some pent-up demand for escapism. I doubt it. Veterans Day is observed on a Friday, so that could help, blah, blah. Here's the cons. Marvel goodwill has unfortunately soured in the past few years due to middling word of mouth. Middling is kind across multiple films, and overexposure of the IP, also underscored by mixed reception via Disney Plus streaming series launched with the intention of expanding the brand. Ongoing industry labor strikes have prevented Brie Larson and cast from promoting the film. That's a positive, not a negative. Contributing to a lackluster marketing campaign, which has often leaned on nostalgia rather than showcasing story, character, and how the film might move the franchise forward. Right, because again, stick Marvel in front of it and we'll make money. That was Kevin Feige's idea after Endgame. It
Right,
doesn't.
that's
Yeah.
a long time. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that was a long time. That's phase 1 through 3. That would be correct because they had a team of talented writers and actors that could pull it off. What do they have today? But think about also this. Between Marvels and Wish, what comes out? Hunger Games. Now, not a Disney product, but you're going to have crossover in publicity because it's got Rachel Ziegler, who's in Snow White. And that's going to do them good. I'm as hell going to make a lot of videos about it, and so will everybody else because I can't stand Rachel Ziegler. But
No, but I mean,
how toxic she is. But again, they don't think of. It seems like they've lost that long-term vision, like a strategy. We're just going to do what we feel, and we feel like
product.
Right.
It's content. That's all
product
it is.
You have to sell. It's like they used to make movies, and you just nailed it. Now they're making content. I think that's part of what killed Hollywood.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valliant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.